Yes. How's everybody's week going so far?
Good.
Yeah?
So far, so good.
Nice.
Is this okay?
Pardon me? Oh, thank you.
But this is, I have things for it, so that's fine.
Okay. Hello. Hello. Sorry, I've missed so many sessions. I was traveling, went to Japan after I left here the first time, and then I just got back from Denver, Colorado. And we were doing similar kinds of gatherings. And seeing that no matter what the culture, they're all similar types of opportunities for growth and challenge based on challenges that come through everyday friction and so forth from the modern world. I suppose at any time in history they're there, but nowadays there seems to be a feeling that although I have so many time-saving devices, I should get something out of it. Some at least more satisfaction, or that seems to have been the original intent. Shall we officially start? We never officially stop, so. And that's one of the ideas of yoga. In fact, I did a class once at Core Yoga in Los Angeles called How to Practice Yoga Off Your Mat. So much of yoga is done on the mat, and the idea that the practice is there, but how does it carry over into the rest of our lives? And really, yoga means connection. So if you look at your hand for a moment, since you've probably underappreciated your hand today, just have a look at your hand front and back and think what an amazing tool it is. It's probably worth more to you than your laptop. Is it? Is it worth more to you than your house and your laptop and your car and your entire bank balance? Maybe, if there was a question of keeping it or not. So it's very valuable because it's connected, and I'll prove that because if you disconnect it and you put it over on Charleston Street, nobody knows where it is, and no one knows who it belongs to, then it won't be that valuable. It'll just be a severed hand, sort of be a little macabre, but when it's not connected, it simply becomes an object. But when it's connected, it becomes altogether useful, so much so that it may be one of the most valuable things that I have. Things, one of the most valuable things. It's a thing. So connection is very important. And the idea behind philosophy, the philosophy of yoga, and behind the practice of meditation, because there's philosophy which convinces the intelligence that there's something more to be found within oneself. And then there's the practice of finding it and experiencing for oneself. These two go together. This is the means of connection. Thank you very much. So today we'll do a little bit of meditation because we can do that anywhere. We are born equipped with that app. The app for meditation comes pre-installed in everyone, and it requires a little bit of um, it needs to be looked at and initiated. And once it is, then we can go as deeply as we like into the depths of our own self and our own consciousness. And that's very important. We talked in previous sessions, I was here for the last session, and there's been talk about the nature of the world, including how it works according to the Bhagavad Gita. And there was a discussion, our last speaker talked about the laws of karma, action and reaction and so forth. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a description of the world that we live in as a closed system. And that's sort of a little bit dry technical language. But the Bhagavad Gita describes it as a banyan tree, which is in Sanskrit called an ashvata. And not only is it a banyan tree, but it's an upside-down banyan tree. Does anybody have any clue why there would, this world that we live in would be described in philosophical terms in the Bhagavad Gita as an upside-down banyan tree? What kind of tree do you see normally that's upside down? Perhaps if you were next to a lake and the tree was on the side of the lake, and you looked into the lake, the reflection would be upside down. So that's exactly what Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, the nature of this world. It's a reflected tree. And therefore, there's a description of those things that I'm looking for and that I'm after and that I actually hold on to or try to hold on to in this world are called the Mrigatrishni Rupa. Do we have any scribe or an artist in the class? Oh, good, you're here. We need you. Could you put on one side, put a tree, because we're already talking about a tree. And then make maybe with a, yeah, and then make that's a nice tree. And then make a reflection, like the exact 180 degrees opposite direction of the tree. And then we need the words Mrigatrishni Rupa. They're in Sanskrit. Okay. M-R.
Which one is the Mriga?
Put it like right in the middle of those two. M-R-G-A. T-R-S-N-I. And the next word is Rupa, R-U-P-A. Now, I put it in Sanskrit because it's really interesting. If you'll underline the Mriga, M-R-G-A, and yeah, that's good. Now, everyone can have a look at this. This Mriga in Sanskrit means the deer. And Trishni, and actually you can draw a line off from each one of those and label what it means.
Deer, like
Deer,
D-E-A-R.
D-E-E-R. And then Trishni means thirst. And Rupa means form. Okay? That's good. Bravo. That's really helpful. Beautiful. So the Mrigatrishni Rupa. So what is a Mrigatrishni Rupa? It's a mirage, because the deer will look out and see in the distance on the flat plains a lake, and it looks like water, but actually there's no water in it. And the deer, mistaking it for water, might run and run and run and run, and then end up falling dead due to thirst. And so the Bhagavad Gita and other bhakti texts talk about how it's easy to mistake the reality for the illusion because it's a mirage. It's a reflection of the reality. And that's what these texts describe this material world as, an illusory, not false. It's not false. It exists, but it's temporary. Just like the water exists, and the illusion of water also exists, but it's temporary. It's like vaporous, and it's not substantial. It can go away at any time. So the bottom half, by 180 degrees, is described as this material world altogether. And my involvement in it is described in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna to be like being in a big ashwata or a banyan tree and not knowing where it begins or where it ends. In other words, it's so large that I can't see the beginning or the end of it, and I can't even see its form because I'm in the middle of it. And for instance, I'm born into the world, and just like when I came in today, somebody slapped a name tag on me. So similarly, when I'm born, somebody comes in and slaps a name tag on me and says, "Guess what? Your name's William," and that's it. And then I have no idea how I got that name and how I got the parents I have and so forth. I just accept the basic reality they have. To that end, there's a couple lines. Well, here's a line from a poem. William Blake, one of the Romantics that you may be familiar with, said, "If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern." And similarly, in Plato's Republic, he gives a very elaborate analogy of cave dwellers and says that in this dark material world, one lives as if in a cave. And then he said, the cave dwellers are chained inside the cave, and then there's a screen, and just behind the screen there's a fire, and then there's some people that are making shadow puppets on the screen. Forms are moving. They use rocks and other kinds of things. And the cave dwellers are watching all those moving shadow puppets, and they take that as the reality. There's a little bit of darkness. So in that, he describes how we're in a closed universe, and that fire is the sun, he says. And then the shadowy images are the comings and goings of these different bodies we enter into. We talked a little bit about reincarnation last week. And that leads to a question that someone wrote in and asked, the one about reincarnation.
Why do we not remember our past lives?
Yeah, why do we not remember our past lives? And there's a way in which we're passing through from one body to the next, according to Bhagavad Gita and other literatures that describe this phenomena. And we experience a great trauma upon being born again into the world. In the womb, our senses are internalized. But when we come out, they start to externalize again and become overwhelmed by the images, the light, the sounds, everything in the world that we see. And due to that trauma, and due to the fact that we are now again in a very particular situation, we tend to identify with that one very limited situation. However, there are different kinds of memory that we have. Besides specific memory, psychologists talk about how we have emotional memory, and we have sensory memory. For instance, if you hear a song, it reminds you of a certain time or place. If you come in contact with certain scenery and so forth, you have emotional kind of responses. You remember certain things. And similarly, we have a cumulative kind of memory that comes about from going from one life to the next. Now, as far as remembering our previous lives, there have been some really interesting studies at the University of Virginia, and a couple of books that have come out by Ian Stevenson. And he has studied specifically, he's a scientist, he's not a theologist, but he's studied about children who remember their past lives. And they have very, very specific memories that they begin to recall to their parents and so forth as soon as they're at an age where they can talk. And they start talking about where they lived, who their parents were, what the place looked like, and so forth. And upon finding these cases, these researchers go there and they investigate, and they've compiled a book with thousands of these incidents around the world where there are perfect matches. The children have never been there and so forth, but they have some memory of their previous life. And we also have a composite memory of previous lives, although we may not have specific ideas about that. So those may be experienced, for instance, in dreams, when you may see a golden mountain. You've seen gold, you've seen a mountain, you've seen various things in other lives that you're not familiar with in this life, but then they become manifest in your dreams and consciousness and so forth. So this is an explanation of the reincarnation, how we're passing from one adult life to the next. And the real question was, what is the use of it if it's a reformatory world? In other words, we're supposed to improve and we don't have specific memory, then how does that help us? How does karma help? And it helps because ultimately we develop a feeling. I think that the speaker last week said that ultimately, what is it he said? That one wants to, I start to feel tired. He said ultimately fatigue sets in when it says, enough of this. There was a famous boxing match in America many years ago where one of the very top fighters, after 12 rounds, he threw in the white towel into the ring and he said, no mas, no more, I give up. So there's a way in which after there's a cumulative memory. I've tried so many times to run after the mirage and been faked out so many times. There's a way in which one becomes what's called a jnani. And a jnani means someone who now sees the difference between the mirage and the reality. It says, there's a fake out going on here, I'm not going for it anymore. I always wondered why Charlie Brown, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the comic, a strip called Peanuts, but there was a character called Charlie Brown. Does this sound familiar? Oh, good. And his nemesis, Lucy, used to invite him to kick a football and say, come and kick the football. And he would say, no, you pulled it out. Every time I've come and tried to kick it, I land on my head. She said, not this time. And he'd come running again, and everyone's going, don't do it, Charlie Brown. And he flips over and lands on his round head. And we always wonder, Charlie, why didn't you get it? So the Gyanis will look at the world and say, why don't people get it? There's a mirage here you're running after, and you're never really ever getting there. It appears as if you're going to get there. Therefore, the sage who uttered these words, Mrgatrishni Rupa, prefixed them by saying, Putra Ashisha. Putra means, where is it? And then he said that the happiness of this world is something that you hear about, so he called it Shruti Sukham. So Shruti means something you hear, right? And Sukham means happiness. Everyone say Sukham. It's a nice word. Sukham. So happiness that you hear about, but, he said, Mrgatrishni Rupa, you never really get it. It's always just ahead. It's like you're almost there, but you don't quite get it. So does that sound familiar in any way? So this is the nature of this world, that there's a happiness that we hear about, we never actually get it. It's like a fake water. It's the mirage within the desert. Now, the clue that we're not part of this world, that we're not meant to endlessly try for that illusory water, is that we have a desire for happiness and bliss. And it's counterproductive in this world. In other words, there are forces we're going against that seem insurmountable in this world, and it doesn't seem right. And there are also urges that we have that are fulfilled. For instance, could you write on the board the word thirst on the right-hand side over there? Put thirst, and then a dash, and across from thirst you can put what would be fulfill thirst? Water. That was on a higher level than you said. Okay, and then next one would be hunger. And then you'd say food. And then we could continue with these kinds of urges that we have, and then there's something to fulfill them, right? And put the next one, put bliss. And then put a dash and put a question mark. So right, that's the big question. So I'm really looking for happiness. This is the point of the Bhagavad Gita. We're really looking for happiness. Thank you for making it so big. So here's the logic behind this. That there's a counterpart to each one of my urges that fulfills it. And similarly, I have a desire for bliss, but it's stymied, it's stopped here in this world. I don't ever quite get it. So the Vedas say that there is a way to fulfill that desire for bliss. And that is a clue or an indication that I'm incompatible with this world as it is. And therefore, there are descriptions about something higher. Now, as I mentioned from Socrates' Republic, he gave this analogy of the cave. So then he said the cave dwellers, if they were invited to come out of the cave, and the cave has a very long, narrow entrance, and outside the sun is shining, and there are actual plants and forms of animals and humans and so forth, the reality. And what would it take for someone to come out of the cave and actually experience it? It might be traumatic. If someone was dragged out from the darkness, then suddenly there would be a glaring light, and it would be very hard to see anything. So he said it takes somebody from outside to gently and gradually introduce us to the light outside and to the different reality. And so it's Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita and many other Vedic literatures and Bhakti literatures talk about a reality that's higher, something that is, it's a realm that one can find within oneself, and there's also a realm beyond this world in the actual tree, which is reflected in this material world, in which that real water is available. If there's an idea of water, but it's illusory in this world, there must be its original counterpart. And so that's what Bhagavad Gita says. Now, interestingly, the remedy to this sounds a little shocking, but what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita one should do with this tree, this ashvata tree, is cut it down. He says one should use an axe to cut it down. And what's that axe? And it is detachment. And the detachment comes from a wider perspective, a knowledge that whatever I'm chasing after here in the material world is temporary, and therefore there must be a reality somewhere else, and then how to find it. So that's where the practice comes in. And that relates to a question, another question that came in that someone asked, and that is, I have a question about last week's content. So there is reincarnation and karma. How do we get out of the whole cycle if we started to feel tired? Because the speaker said, you must feel tired of it, I want to try something else. And so how does one get out of that cycle and actually experience the bliss that we're looking for? So we mentioned detachment, and that is by having a perspective that everything that glitters is not gold in this world, and therefore have some restraint through knowledge, of not pursuing everything that seems to be of interest to me in this world. And then the other aspect is an inner practice, what we call sadhana, through which one can experience from oneself a sample of that water. So the Upanishads say that there's a higher world, there's a higher realm of consciousness and a world that's actually real, that's not temporary and illusory and full of suffering. And that you can have a sample of that in this world, and where is the most available sample? What could you look at that most resembles that? Eternal, illuminate, self-luminous, full of bliss realm. I'll give you a hint, it's really close, what the Upanishad says. What could you look at in this world that would give you a sample of that, and that's readily available? That's a good start, yes. That's the process. But what is it you're looking at that's different from, categorically different from all the things in this world that are wispy, temporary, fleeting, illusory? Knowledge, process to get there. But what is the actual thing that you're looking at that is a sample of that higher realm? Yourself! It says look at yourself. This is really astounding knowledge because I never looked at it before, carefully. And that's what meditation, the level that meditation takes it to. What are you looking at? I'm looking at myself. Why would you want to do that? Because I've been looking at things outside myself for so long, and I'm weary. Because every time I pursue them, the time that I enjoy them the most is just the second before I actually get them. Because once I do, then I start to get an anxiety. One of my friends told me that he always wanted to have this fancy car. And I asked him years later, did you ever get it? He said, yes. I said, how is it? He said, well, the time I enjoyed it the most was the night before I bought it. And after that, I was in total anxiety. I was thinking, it's more expensive than I thought. And I was afraid to park it anywhere. And I was afraid the first scratch I'd get on it. And that's pretty much how all things work in this world. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says there's an experience that you can have directly that gives you a sample of the higher realm. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there are several verses that talk about this self-luminous realm where there's no anxiety, and we call no hankering and no lamentation. Hankering means, it's a funny word, hankering, but it's like, I want something, I want something, I want something, and I'm chasing, 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 chasing. And even if I catch up to it, it's not what I thought it would be. It changes into something else. And lamentation means I didn't do it right before, I didn't get what I wanted before. So there's the past and there's the future, but where is that experience of bliss that I'm looking for, that I should be able to get, because everything else I can get? So the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, they say, you can experience that for yourself. You just have to be a little bit thoughtful, and you have to introspect. And meditation is a helpful way to do that. Knowledge, I like your answer, meditation, yes. Both those things, exactly. And but through those, one can get the experience. So let's try it. We've got nothing to lose and all to gain, right? Let's just relax for a second. Because there's a way in which the body gets wound up because the mind is going so fast. And I forget that I'm clenching different organs in my body. And now just sort of settle down in your seat, but keep a slightly erect spine because that really helps in meditation. If your spine is a little bit erect, you can try the difference between the two. Like slouch a little bit, and then sit up a little bit straight. And you'll notice almost right away that more energy comes up through your spinal cord and into your brain. And if you went to an interview and you sat like this, yeah, sure, why not? Then they wouldn't take you as seriously as if you sat up like this. What do you think? Yes? If you sit in class, or if you sit like this. So attention is a very powerful tool that we have. In fact, It's the main tool of meditation, attention. And the word attention has the small word ten in it, just like tendon. So a tendon connects the muscle and the bone. And similarly, attention connects us to what we're looking at, what we're focusing on, what we're contemplating. We actually develop what we call a sangha, or a deep connection with it. Sa anga. Anga means a part, and sa means we become one with it. Actually, we connect with it in a very profound way. And also the word intention has the word ten in it. So your intention in meditation is very important. So before you start meditating, it's good to fix your intention. What are you planning on doing right now for the next 5-10 minutes? So you have to make the intention that I'm going to look inwardly. That's one thing. I'm going to observe my conscious self. That's interesting stuff. But the mind will say, that's not very interesting. Something else is interesting, like, did they find the plane yet? That must be really interesting because everyone's watching it. And there are so many other topics. In fact, the Gita says there are millions and millions of topics that your mind can go to that it says are interesting, but it says, don't be fooled, because the most interesting thing is what you're about to look at, and that's your consciousness, your conscious self. So fix your intention, and that is that I'm going to look inwardly, and then when my mind starts to churn, and it doesn't actually start, it just never stopped. It's going constantly. It's moving, moving, moving. And in the Gita, it says that the mind is constantly going. So don't be surprised by it, but do observe how the mind is spinning from one thing to the next. And then the direction in the 6th chapter of Gita for meditation is practice bringing your attention back to the conscious self. Now, that's very hard to do. So I'm just telling you ahead of time that even the most qualified person of the Gita, who was being taught meditation at the time, his name was Arjuna, was a very advanced person. And Krishna told him about this meditation. He said, it's impossible. The mind is too wild. It's like not just a monkey, but a drunken monkey. I have nothing against monkeys, maybe a little bit. In India, some of those who know not the langur monkeys that are very sort of calm and cool and regal, but they're the rhesus monkeys. They're always looking for something to break or steal, and they're jumping from one place to the next. Anybody seen those monkeys? Yes, a few of you have been in India. And so they'll swoop down when you're least expecting it, steal your glasses, jump back on the roof, and then trade them back for biscuits. Or they'll just, whatever's new, they'll break it. So the mind's not just like that, but it's one of those monkeys got intoxicated, drank a bottle of whiskey or something, and then went crazy. That's how wild the mind is. So you can expect that the mind is going to spin off in different directions. The most commonly asked question after meditation is, how do you control the mind? It's very difficult. Yes, it is. But it's possible by practice and by detachment. So detachment is very sweet because all the time I'm attached to the next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. As soon as I'm born, I'm expected to learn how to walk. As soon as I start walking, I got to go to kindergarten, which I hated. And then after that, there's expectations for 2nd grade, 5th grade, high school. Then you got to get a job. There's always something I'm moving on to the next thing. Take time to be detached and just don't chase anything. Don't let the mind tell you got to go somewhere. Don't let the mind tell you have to be something, because you already are something. You're already something that's more valuable than anything else, any other thing in this world. You're more valuable. And that's how to fix your intention. Just create this space that you know you have everything you want to experience is already there within yourself. And then now, take this relaxed pose and close your eyes, and then take in some natural breaths. Just be aware of your breath, your inhale and your exhale. And throughout the day, I'm barely aware of the fact that I'm breathing. But that breath is sustaining me all the time. So please, focus on your breath and feel how good it is just to take in this energy or prana from the environment, and how every time you're breathing in, every cell in your body is also breathing in. It goes through the same process, and you're nourishing every cell in your body, and you're exhaling, and all kinds of exhaust is coming out. And with your exhale, let any thoughts that are now troubling you also come out with your breath. And keep breathing like that in a natural way. And now deeply relax your legs. Just let them go. And now let your arms fall limp. You don't need them right now. Just relax them completely. Haven't had a chance to do that all day. While keeping slightly erect spine, release all your body parts below your neck. Let your shoulders go loose. And now feel the facial muscles relax. Now keep concentrating on your breath. Now, think of your heart region. The region of your heart is a very powerful chakra. So much energy and emotion comes from this heart chakra. And today we're going to practice a mantra. And when we say it together, we're going to feel that we're sending out vibration of unconditional service and love out to the world. We don't want anything back. We're only giving. Because by giving, you grow. You become a bigger person. Your heart becomes unlimitedly, its capacity increases. And your ability to appreciate the world becomes greater. And we're going to repeat a very ancient mantra. Actually, it's said to be eternal, and which encompasses this spiritual energy we were talking about, which is from beyond this world. So it's coming down to us from a luminous world where there are no anxieties, where there is no suffering. There's only the eternal here and now and complete happiness. And the mantra is Om. And so I'm going to say Om at a certain pitch. And on an exhale, you can join in with me and say the mantra Om. And I'm going to say it over and over again. And as you do, notice how the powerful vibration of this Om is emanating from your heart. And feel that you're sending out vibrations of love, healing energy to the world in selfless service. Please relax. Now, take a nice deep inhale. And inhale. And please join me, if you like, say the mantra. Now please sit and feel how the vibration has gone through your body and how it has opened your heart. Notice that there's weight in your body. Your body is made of earth, water. You can feel that there's heat in the body. Your legs have heaviness, your arms have heaviness. These are from material elements. And then you can look inside and see, as a witness, how your thoughts are moving about from one place to the next. Just take a moment to notice how your thoughts are moving around, but you're not your thoughts, you're observing them. Now concentrate on your hearing power and notice that without doing anything, there's sound coming into your conscious awareness. And now notice your heart region, which is the seat of emotions. And according to the Bhagavad Gita, is the seat of all consciousness. And notice that from there, there's feeling, emotion, that you feel happiness and distress in your heart at various times in your life, and this is the seat of it. Now just sit in silence and feel how the energies of your consciousness are pervading your entire body from your toes to the top of your head. There's conscious feeling that emanates from your conscious self. Take a nice deep inhale, and one more time we're going to utter the mantra Om. Now keeping your eyes closed, wiggle your toes, move your fingers around, let your legs come back into motion, move your arms a little bit. Slowly open your eyes, come back into the room. And here we are back in a classroom in Google. Someplace in a huge universe called, on a little speck called planet Earth. And so many ideas I have, plans I have, important things I must do that I'm always urged to do the next thing, that I barely get a chance ever to look inside and take time. So there are many different kinds of meditation. And the objective of them is to have this experience of one's own consciousness and then realize that that consciousness is being sustained. And to start to feel gratitude in one's heart is one of the most powerful emotions one can have, that practically can overcome the ocean of miseries and distractions that come into one's life if one has gratitude. And it's not an intellectual exercise, experiencing gratitude, but it is a natural experience of feeling oneself to be alive and to experience one's consciousness. So this practice is so important and so refreshing that the Bhakti texts recommend that we do it at least once a day. There's a famous violinist in Russia, and he said, if I don't practice one day, then I notice it. If I don't practice 2 days, then my teacher notices it. If I don't practice 3 days, then everybody notices it. So you'll begin to notice how important it is to you to take some time every day, even if it's a few minutes, to sit, relax, notice your breath, and breathe. And then there are various mantras which you can practice with. And you'll see, you'll taste something from each one of those mantras. A mantra is like a zip file. It has information in it. It has its own power to release various energies in your body and your consciousness and so forth. And this experience, this practice of yoga should be direct. No one needs to tell you from a textbook or come in and say, give you a certificate that you've advanced. You should know for yourself. As much as when you're hungry and you eat food, you'll know for yourself that you're feeling nourished, satisfied, and your hunger's going away. So those are a few thoughts, and now I want to take some from my side, and now I'm begging you for some reflections, because it completes the circle. So if you'll give me back just one thing that you heard, a concept, anything that you experienced in the class since we were here that is stuck with you, I would deeply appreciate it. Yes?
Chasing the mirage thing is pretty compelling. Yeah. I look back and like countless mirages that I keep chasing.
Chasing the mirage, I'm going to repeat what you say because it's online. Chasing the mirage is particularly compelling. And Sheshu has said that he's experienced it for himself, chasing many countless mirages, experiencing that one never quite arrives. What else did you hear? One thing, one word, one concept.
Hankering versus lamenting.
Hankering and lamenting. These are hankering generally for the future, something I need to have, and lamenting for something I didn't get. But where's the experience right now? Yes, thank you very much. What else did you hear? Or experience in the meditation? Yes. Yourself as a sample. Yeah, and we gave it. I think I gave an example earlier in the first or second class that I gave. That the Vedas describe how there's a poor man and he's without money, without prospect in life, suffering, and someone comes along and says, "What's that hanging around your neck?" And it turns out that he has an invaluable diamond around his neck that he forgot about. It's been hanging there all the time. So the Vedas also say that the most valuable thing we have is ourselves. All the other things in the world are pale in comparison. They can't add up. So looking at it from time to time can really become inspiration. Thank you. That was very nice. What else did you hear or experience? Yeah.
Yourself is not your mind.
Yourself is not your mind. That's a huge breakthrough in meditation. And also it has so many collateral benefits, because when I identify with my mind and my emotions, I just react. And my life is directed by those things. But when I learn to detach myself a little bit, and remember I said the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, you can cut down this tree of illusion through detachment. And that's where it comes from. Like Chad's saying, he's noticing the mind is moving, the thoughts are there, And sometimes they're described as, they're just energy. There are other forms of energy, just like clouds come through, the weather comes through and you notice it. Oh, it's hot, it's cold, and so forth. So the emotional energy comes up also. And that passes through our mental system, and we can watch it go by and be detached from it. We don't have to hold on to it. What else did you hear or experience? Yes, a question.
This whole concept of detachment.
The concept of detachment and being present in the moment.
What is that? Which you almost say to people think present in the moment, there's all this stuff.
And it seems to be contradictory because if you're present in the moment, there's lots of things going on in the moment. Is that true?
Yeah.
That's the question. Well, the experience is described in the Bhagavad Gita, which I'll just read to you because we have the text right here. And this gives an indication of what one might experience. And it's just remarkable that I turned right to it, by the way. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. In this, it says, upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. There is a way in which whatever I get here in this world, I think there's something else. There's something else to move on to. There's an experience in the here and now, which is seeing my real position separate from the body, not dependent on anything else in this world. In other words, I don't have to become something more than I am now, and I don't have to go anywhere. I'm completely satisfied with what I am right here, right now, and I practically, I don't have to move. There's a book I saw, I haven't read, but the title was enough for now, and it said, don't just do something, sit there. I don't know if you ever heard an adult say, don't just sit there, do something. This book says, don't just do something, sit there. And someone asked me a long time ago, are you a human being or a human doing? Can you just be, or do you have to do all the time? The mind wants to do, but you can just be. And that's in the moment, in the exact moment you're there, you're experiencing something which is so satisfying that you don't have to go and you don't have to get up and move. In fact, you're transfixed on it. You want to sit there and experience it more and go deeper into it. And that's, yes.
Oh, that's an add.
Please.
When you said, like, during meditation, to fix an intention, I always hear that, like, intention for the class. But I always end up thinking about work or responsibilities. Like somebody said, think about detachment, the thing you don't think about. That was a really good, I think, intention.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, it's such a powerful thing, the intention. I mean, it's everything, really. What was your intention? Even in law, when you go into a court of law, it's like, okay, what did you intend to do? Did you really mean to kill him? No, you didn't. It's just an insignificant offense, you know, some involuntary manslaughter. But if you thought it up and they looked at your Google record and it turns out you bought duct tape and everything, you know, it's a capital offense because of your intention. And our intention is so powerful that to really look at it and see, what is my intention? It helps to write it down and to look at it and, you know, focus on that and then go deeply into one's meditation. Thank you, nice point.
Practice detachment.
How do you practice detachment? Well, that's the $16 million question. Interestingly enough, and I'll leave you with this for a future session because we are finished. But this is the riddle, and this is where the whole positive philosophy of yoga, because yoga really means plus. It doesn't mean minus, and it doesn't mean nothing. It means plus. And so you practice detachment by attachment to something more. There is something to be, like, I'm entangled in this world in so many ways, and it's unbelievable how entangled I am. I mean, when somebody leaves this world and the doctor says, you got to get your affairs together, it takes a long time to get your affairs together, even if you're not like a big mover and shaker in this world. It really does. I've seen it. And so we have to become entangled in something that's a superior energy. And that's what's being described in the Gita. There is activity, and there are entanglements that are actually positive. And only until we experience those do we become detached from the inferior. And as I think I said it in the first class, one overcomes envy, one overcomes lust, one overcomes material attachment through what is called rasa. And rasa means a higher taste. And that means attachment to something that's positive and much higher than what we have now. And that's available through the process of yoga, and that's the goal of yoga. Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much. This is a really enjoyable session sitting with you because it's a 50-50 relationship without, I mean, you're all taking time out of your very busy, I'm imagining, schedules to come here for this experience. And because you're here, there's this circle for reciprocation. I thank you very much. I'm deeply grateful for you coming. Have a great day. See you next time.
Do you have a couple minutes? Yeah, I don't know. Or I can read. Let's come on to this. So, one second. So one of the kind of confusions I have often is like the main gist of Gita is that once you do their duty, right? Like duty is like one of the things that keep for yourself. Right? When you talk about detachment, how do you detach yourself when you're bound?
Well, I mean, it is a kind of detachment. Duty, it's not the ultimate in Bhagavad Gita, although it is a main theme. But there may be many ideas about doing this or that. But in other words, if you have a duty to do and you stick to it, and all the changes in life come, let's say quit, or something like in the beginning of the Gita, Arjuna wants to quit, right, not do his duty. Basically, he's a military man. So if a policeman in the middle of a melee says, you know, I'm suddenly non-violent, you know, you say, you signed up, you said the oath, you got to go take care of this, you know. Nobody likes a non-violent policeman. So Arjuna, you know, his mind was telling him to do so many other things, right? And one, he could get attached to this or that or the other thing, but at that point, Krishna says, be attached to doing your duty. Do your duty. You have to do it. There's a respite in that, because you'll be dragged in so many other different ways. But that's just the beginning, because the duty is not the end in and of itself. It's to give us balance. Because if you have 2 feet on the ground, you can jump up high. If you're out of balance, it's hard to do anything. And sometimes we see in this world people, they don't know what their duty is. They don't know where they fit in. They take till they're 36 years of age, you know, to figure out, like, where are we going to go? What are we going to do, right? But in the Varnashram culture that Bhagavad Gita comes from, there was a clearer idea from the beginning. It's like, this is your proclivity. Therefore, pursue it, work in it, and as things go up and down, which they will, you stick to your duty. But then, at the same time, one's meant to cultivate something higher. But the duty gives one a base from which to do that.
Isn't it also non-attachment to the fruits of
Yes, that's very clear in the Bhagavad Gita. And this is one of the most powerful concepts. Do your duty, but don't take the fruits. And when you do that, then you get knowledge, because you become separated from, you know, the thing that you thought you needed. And when you see that you survive without it, and then actually you flourish, and it's not something that's liberating, but it's actually something that weighs you down, keeping the fruits. Then you start to grow into this idea of selfless service, which I mentioned before. It's the real source of satisfaction. They call it, I hate to keep the unmotivated, uninterrupted service. When you're doing that, you don't want anything back, then you're invincible. Because when you have a motive, then there's fear, because you got something to lose, right?
Right, but like from my perspective, right? I'm sorry to like as a role, say I'm a father, right? Like in my duty as a father, like I have things to do for my kid, but it's hard for me to separate that from detachment or even the fruits of kind of my duty, so to speak, right? Like my child's prosperity or success is kind of in the best interest, and that is almost my duty to make sure that I ensure it for.
It is your duty. You have to do that. But at the same time, why are you doing it? Like, one thing is, say, for instance, raising children. When you're raising children, what are you raising them for?
Right.
What's the purpose behind that? The purpose behind which you do your work, or you do your duty to raise your children. You have to think, like, why am I